on. Good afternoon, everyone. You never know if you're supposed to start right at 4 o'clock, if 3:59 is maybe, we're breaking the law if we start a minute earlier or 30 seconds late or whatever. So anyway, we'd like to welcome you all to Washington County Board of Commission meeting today. And as we start our meeting, we're blessed to have Reverend Michael Chamness from the Shepherd of the Hills Methodist Church, and he is also a member of the local Interfaith Council. He will be joining us via Zoom to give our invocation. After our invocation, we'll be led by our Pledge of Allegiance by James Stanley, our undersheriff. So thank you very much for being willing to do that. Reverend? Thought I saw him. Reverend, are you there to give our invocation?
Yes, I am.
Oh, welcome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. So thank you very much. The time is yours. We appreciate you being willing to do this.
All right. Well, thank you. Let's get you started. Join with me for a moment of prayer. Oh, you're the Almighty God, and it's through the power of your grace and your love that you enable us to do more and to be more than we can possibly think or imagine. Come, be with this gathering, lead us and teach us so that we may be strong and do the work of the community with integrity, with joy, and with progress as our goal. Be with us this day in the name of all that is holy in Christ the Lord. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much for that beautiful prayer.
Thank you.
You'd all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, justice for all.
Thank you so much. Our first item on our agenda is our consent agenda. The consent agenda is a means of expediting the consideration of routine matters. If a commissioner requests that items be removed from the consent agenda, those items are placed at the beginning of the regular agenda. Other than requests to remove items, a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda is non-debatable.
Chair, if you don't mind, I'll read
Please.
in those items from the consent agenda. Item A, consideration of auditor approved claims for payment for October 21, 2020 through November 17, 2020. Item B, consideration of regular commission meeting minutes of October 20, 2020, and special commission meeting minutes of October 28, 2020. Item C, consideration of administrative adjustments for real property. Item D, consideration of administrative adjustments for personal property. Item E, consideration of applications for property tax abatement, of which there were 75. Item F, acknowledgement of publishing, notice of adoption of ordinances numbers 2020-1162-0, 2020-1163-0, and 2020-1164-0 on Saturday, October 24th, 2020.
Mr. Chairman, I would second the motion.
We have a motion and a second on our consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. I'd like to, if with the permission of two other commissioners, go ahead and move to item number 2. And we have a presentation that I think we'll be doing a little bit later in the agenda, if that's okay.
Yes.
Since I don't see the person that we'd like to present to yet. So anyway, item 2 is a presentation of the preliminary budget for 2021. Washington County Clerk Auditor Kim Hafen. What happened to my budget? Oh, I had one. I just didn't bring it with me. It's in the back. It's fine.
seems like budget here not very long ago. I'm
True.
I think just found out that life's like a roll of toilet paper. The closer you get to the end, the faster it goes. So
Right.
I think that's the way it kind of works. It seems like. We have prepared the 2021 budget. It seemed like a long time ago now with the interruption of the election. But I'm going to just read a few of the highlights of the budget, and we'll go through a few slides. I think most of the comments will explain a lot of the changes that between one year and the next. But with this budget, we have included a 4% wage increase. That is effective for nearly everyone. The public safety is on a July to June schedule, so that doesn't include them at this point, but it will be in next July. And some of our grant-funded people will also go to a July schedule. There were very few changes in the URS retirement rates. There was a change from a year ago that went into effect on July 1st of 2020. So we had a year of half and half, and now we'll have a little bit of an increased rate, but not much. They've been quite flat for a number of years. Also, there will be no increases in employee or county contributions to health care for the 2021 budget, which is good. One added benefit that's in this budget that the commission has approved is the county provides a life insurance policy for employees, and that's being increased from $18,000 to $25,000. That's all funded by the county, so grateful for that. The staffing isn't too much different, but the biggest changes to staffing come from a new judge in the 5th District Court, and that will require 2 new attorneys, prosecutors in our attorney's office, plus 2 new public defenders, plus a new bailiff. And so it's nearly $450,000 in total spread across a few different departments. We do have a new public works employee in the budget, have a part-time building maintenance person moving to full-time, and that is kind of a COVID-related expense, as we in the past have used inmates. And now, with the way things are, with locked down a bit, we don't have that, so we have an employee that's doing that now. So, have a new employee budgeted for the shooting sports park. We've made a number of improvements to that shooting sports park during 2020, and look forward to kind of a range manager there in 2021. So, but the biggest single thing in the budget, I don't know if Nicole wants to stand up and take a bow for this or not. But she is adding $25 million to this budget over 2020. We've been talking about a new building for a long time. Some people still think it's a figment of our imagination, but I think in a few weeks we'll start to see at least some destruction if we don't see some construction right away. But we do have $25 million in this budget for a new administration building. Now, the way this accounting works is it will appear that there's more than $25 million in this budget because the departments are transferring, the departments that are going to share this building are going to move some of their fund balance to the capital projects fund to help pay for it. So the part that they are transferring shows up in their department budgets, and it also shows up in the total of the 25 or the 45 capital projects fund. So it appears to be a bit bigger maybe than over last year. But looking at the 10 fund, I think it was about 4.8% higher than last year. Excluding transfers, the overall budget's only about 1.2% higher than 2020. So with that, we'll kind of, if you have questions, ask. It'll be, I think, pretty apparent the things that we're about here. So the first slide that we have here is a total of the revenues in the general fund. You can see it's up $1.5 million. That comes from two significant sources. In the taxes, that comes from 2 things. An increase in the quarter-cent option, which is on all sales in the county, and it also is new growth in property taxes. And then you'll see down in charges for services, we're starting to feel the full effects of we're going to honor Russ here in a little bit. We're going to honor him mainly because he raised the rates over in the recorder's office, and we're we're reaping the benefits on the revenue line. Actually, that was legislative driven and not Russ driven, but you'll see the charges for services that are a bit higher there, and that's will reflect that from recorder fees. Okay, the next, this, I don't know if this is kind of summarized what we've seen on the previous page. You can see where the various taxes come from. It will soon be the case, I believe, that sales and use, the quarter-cent option, will surpass property tax as the biggest single source of revenue in the 10 fund. It's still second, but not very far in second. So that's kind of coming as this economic engine in Washington County keeps grinding on, even in the face of the pandemic. But it's pretty amazing, actually. We've had a decade of economic expansion and kind of almost unbelievably, and haven't seen an end to that yet, even with 2020. The next slide will show some of the major departments in the general fund. You can see how those compare from one year to the next. There's not a lot of change. Some of the biggest change probably is in the attorney's office, and that's added 2 additional attorneys that were talked about covering the new judge in the 5th District Court. And the public defender line is also higher with 2 additional public defenders that are tied to that as well. So, if you have any questions, be sure and let me know. You'll also notice that elections are significantly lower in 2021. 2021 is a municipal elections year, and we still have expense tied to that, and we anticipate that some cities will use us to do their election, but it's not nearly like the election was. We'll talk about that later in another section. This is a graph that kind of shows the general fund, the pie there. The next one is the Fund 11, that's the BNC Road Fund, and you'll see that total revenues are up a bit, and that is really reflecting the full impact of the transportation tax that was passed a year and a half ago. And it shows quite an increase over 2020, but we will, when we open the budget for 2020 later in December, the 2020 budget will be raised a bit, so there won't be quite as much disparity there as those kind of right now. The next budget is municipal services, and this is the first department that you will see down in the transfer line, transfers and miscellaneous. The biggest single thing different here is the fact that Public Works will be contributing their share of the new building for the square feet, the footage that they'll occupy over there. So you can see that that transfer is going to show up, and then it's also going to show up in 45. That's why it kind of gets duplicated.
Right.
The next one we'll look at here is assessing and collecting. Same thing, you'll see that transfer line is significantly higher as they will occupy a pretty significant portion of the new building as well. I'll just note, in 2020, the commission approved a tax decrease in the assessing and collecting amount. That's for the second year in a row. We'll have to obviously look at 2021 when that time rolls around, but for 2 consecutive years, the commission has approved not only no increase in the tax, but an actual decrease in the tax dollars that are being collected there.
Did that get recorded on the TV?
I was told to say that by Commissioner Almquist, so I'm not sure I got that in there. The next kind of major fund here is the county library. The difference in total revenues essentially is the new growth. Property taxes essentially stay the same year over year with the exception of new growth. And new growth is when property changes its nature. It's not a matter of your house being valued at $250,000 instead of $210,000 the previous year. Your rate will go down to kind of cover that. But when the land changes its nature from an alfalfa field to a subdivision, that generates new growth revenue in property tax. Okay. The next one is the Council on Aging. Not a lot of changes here. A lot of the funds don't have a lot of changes, actually, with the exception of the ones that are transferring money to 45. Transient room tax, we saw a significant hit in transient room tax in 2020, although it is rebounding pretty well, pretty nicely, actually. We are budgeting a little bit less in revenues for 2021, but we'll take some money out of the fund balance to make the transfer for the new building. They'll occupy part of the first floor, and it'll be kind of a welcome center as well as their operating office over there. Also in 2020 was the first year, maybe 2019, but the legislature passed legislation we can give the money from transient room tax to the Hurricane Valley Fire District as they provide emergency services for Springdale and Zion National Park. So some of that money, 4%, goes to Hurricane Valley Fire. The next one is the county recreation budget. This is the Fund 26 funded by restaurant tax and leasing tax. You can see this budget is down a bit this year. And the main reason is down in the Shooting Sports Park. We have done major work over there in 2020 and won't be quite as involved there maybe in 2021. This is kind of a summary of other funds that are on in our financial statements. You see the HCP, their budget is actually approved by their own board. You can see that it's higher, and they also are going to occupy space in our new building and pay for their share of that square footage, but the rest of those are not much change. This last one is Fund 33, which is debt service. And over the past several years, the Commission has been very involved in paying off debt early and in refinancing debt as interest rates have dropped. We have two GO bonds left, the library bond of 2007 and the refinanced library COA bond 2010. Those are the two GO bonds we have left. One of those pays off in 2024 and one pays off in 2026. So I think our outlook on debt is really pretty good. Most of the line items on here are under the Municipal Building Authority, where some of the local service districts use us as a conduit for their borrowing for fire stations and equipment and so on. I think that is all I've got to say about that. Do you have any questions? This kind of opens up a period here of a month where the public we'll get the summary up on our website, and the public will have the opportunity to come in and quiz you all or quiz me about more of the detail of what's.
Well done.
Thank you, Kim. It's a pleasure to work with you and the department heads in putting this tentative budget together, and you do a very capable and efficient job at it, and I appreciate it.
Well, I'd be remiss if anybody thinks that this is my budget. This is the county's budget, and we are in good financial condition, and the reason for that is the commission and the department heads that treat this money like they're supposed to. Thanks.
Yeah, Kim, I just want to join Commissioner Cox in thanking you. And of course, Kim prepares quite a packet for us commissioners to look at. And one of the things that I really enjoy doing is flipping back and comparing year over year, because Kim will outline, what we've spent in different funds and departments over years. And it's great to see that we've kept our spending. In some cases, we're spending less than we did 5 or 6 years ago. And I that takes a lot of discipline and a lot of hard work by our county employees and departments and just being frugal. But yeah, I can't say enough good about Kim Hafen, our clerk auditor. I would say that he was clerk auditor of the year, but he'd probably just throw a book at me or something. But exactly. We sure appreciate you. Thank you so much. And like you mentioned, the budget is now open for comment from the public until December, I believe. What date? It'll be our second commission meeting in December is when we'll officially vote on that. Well, now we'd like to jump back to a really kind of fun thing here that we're going to recognize Russ Schertz, our recorder. And I think we have a little video we're going to show. Yes, please.
My name is Russell Schertz, and I'm the county recorder in Washington County. A little over 31 years I've been the recorder. Before I was the county recorder, I was the director of the Washington County Library for 9 years. Well, the recorder's office has changed a lot in the 30-plus years I've been in there. When I first came, we were still handwriting things in the great big books, and now it's all scanned in and digitized and all computerized. So you had to have good handwriting then, you don't now.
Russ has 40 years of service or so with the county. When he leaves, he is going to take with him a wealth of knowledge, but Russ is great. Russ will be missed at the county.
Having this opportunity to be Russ's successor, I just want to tell him thanks for the friendship more than anything. That means more than anything else, is to have such a good friend, and for just being a good example. It's not easy being a recorder and dealing with the public, and having to say no is not an easy thing. But I've known Russ to be full of integrity, honesty, and he has served the public well, and so I thank him for that. I hope that I can do as well as he's done. I've got big shoes to fill.
Well, I think that's the most important thing we do, is serve the public and do it in a diplomatic, kind way. And occasionally you have to say no, but you have to do that in a way that they'll understand. And that's been our emphasis in the recorder's office since I've been here, is public service and helping the public. You've worked as long as I have, it's time to do something else. Still fun to come to work because you enjoy the people you work with. And that's probably the biggest thing that I've enjoyed, is the people.
Of course, Russ still has a couple more months. He's working so hard to get things ready for Gary. But I just want to say I've been blessed to be a county commissioner now for 6 years. And before I became a county commissioner, I met with Russ, and I'd known him kind of in his capacity. But he was so kind to sit down and visit with me and talk to me about what he did at the recorder's office. And so often, I think people think about county government and they think about us 3 county commissioners, but they don't always appreciate these tremendous public servants that we get an opportunity and a blessing to serve with, that our recorder is elected, and he's doing so much good work for the public there. Everybody's home and property is really the most important asset and thing that they'll ever own. And I did, when I watched that video and he talked about saying no, I've just never saw that side of Russ. He's usually always, how can I help you? How can I help you get this done? He's never told me no. And so, I don't know, maybe that's something you say over there often, but as a citizen, even before being a county commissioner, whenever I went to the recorder's office to record a document or do something or look up a deed, everybody was so helpful and so kind and so good over there. And I think that was a reflection of, I know it's a reflection of Russ, his personality, who he is as a person, and just how his entire department and staff reflect that. And so it's been an honor to be able to work with you. You've been a blessing to Washington County, to be able to, these 40 years of service that you've given to us. One of the fun things is the documents that you have over there are really a reflection of our entire history, going back to when the county seat was in New Harmony, and they were starting to draw up deeds for property. But it's a blessing for us to be able to recognize you, Russ, and honor these 40 years. And we have a little plaque that we'd like to give to you. I'm going to leave the wrapping.
Well, one thing people don't know is that once Russ had read every book in the library, then it was time to move on, right?
Russ and his wife Marilyn moved into our ward. I'm trying to think how long ago that was, Russ, but maybe it's better that I don't. But anyway, everybody brings joy into your life. You've heard that saying. Some when they come, others when they leave. Russ has always been such a personable and friendly individual. He's always brought joy to those who interact with him, and so thank you, Russ.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Thank you. Well, I know that as we get ready for this transition, we were talking to our assessor, Tom Durant, and of course, the recorder plays a very important role for the assessor, and then the assessor takes those roles and gets everybody's property tax put together, and of course the treasurer. Everybody works together, and they have deadlines, and I know that Russ is, if I had spent 40 years working and doing that, I think I'd be, maybe getting ready, packing things up, but I know he's really concerned about meeting that deadline, making sure that things are in proper order for the transition, and that just shows what a great commitment you have to our county. So thank you. Appreciate you. So our next item is a motion to open a public hearing for our community block grant. I guess I'll go ahead and entertain that motion.
Chairman, I would make a motion to open a public hearing for the Community Development Block Grant for the 2021 fiscal year.
Very good. And I have...
Second.
Oh, a motion is a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're now in a public hearing, and I have a statement that it says that the chair should read verbatim. I don't know if the earth cracks in two, if I miss a sentence or something, but I'm going to make sure that I read it. And it says, the purpose of the public hearing is to provide citizens with pertinent information about Community Development Block Grant Program and allow for discussion of possible applications for 2021 funding cycle. The grant money must be spent on projects benefiting primarily low and moderate income persons. The Five-County Association of Government, in which Washington County is a member, is expecting to receive approximately $907,269 in this new programming year. All eligible activities that can be accomplished under this program are identified in the CDBG Application Policies and Procedures Manual, and interested persons can review it at any time. Examples of eligible activities include construction of public works and facilities such as water and sewer lines and fire stations. Other examples of eligible activities also include acquisition of real property and provisions of public services such as food banks or homeless shelters. In the past, Washington County has received 23 grants that have supported traditional and affordable housing, community facilities, remodels, purchase Meals on Wheels trucks and fire trucks, updated water systems, and expanded fire stations. We handed out our capital investment plan as a part of the regional consolidated plan. This list shows these projects the cities has identified as being needed in the community. Will anyone with questions, comments, or suggestions during the hearing please identify themselves by name before they speak? The clerk will include your name in the minutes, and we would like to specifically respond to your questions and suggestions during the hearing. And that is my statement that I was supposed to read. So any of the public that was here would like to come forward, and Gary's not here? Is Gary from Five County here? Okay.
I do believe, though, Commissioner, I think Ash Creek might be interested in this grant. I know that they've been working on it, so I don't know that they necessarily have to say that at this time, but if they do, I might say it for them. But this is a process, and I think that there will be a second hearing, so just wanted to let you know that we might have some interested parties this year.
Very good.
And one other town has come to meetings prior have split their request over a couple of years. They'll probably be back. If you can only imagine a small town that relies on a single source of water, federal government comes in and says that water's not good enough or it's potentially on the margin, you devastate a town financially to try and say, you've got to meet this standard and in a short period of time. So these funds really go to some perfect, noble causes. They'll probably reapply.
And can I also say, Chairman, just for the record, there is one other group, Memory Matters, which serves the Alzheimer population in Washington County. They have reached out, and I've had discussions with them. They might be able to get other CARES funding through Five County, and I think that they're going to try that first. But if that somehow doesn't come through, that they will have an opportunity to go through the CDBG process as well.
Very good. And as I read in the statement, and having served on the Five County Board, I think one of the criteria is the low to moderate income, that they're able to prove that need there. So, well, with no other public,
Is there anyone on Zoom?
is there anybody on Zoom that would like to add to the public comment? Very good. I will accept a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
I'll second.
Very good. We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Item 4 is...
Mr. Chair, sorry, could I just read a statement about the public hearing process?
Yes.
That
Yes.
Let the minutes reflect that all public comments have been heard and people have had the opportunity to be heard. Comments were taken by many methods in Zoom using the reaction icon of clapping or thumbs up or the chat feature, and by phone participation and by in-person participation. All methods have been monitored by county staff. The public hearing was open and closed only after everyone had the opportunity to make public comment.
Very good. Did we
Thank you,
get any
Brian.
clapping or thumbs up on Zoom?
Not that Cheyenne indicated.
Because if that was done in the regular meeting, it'd be disruptive, but anyway. Sorry. Item 4 is a consideration of purchase request. Ray? Why did I say that? Get me all nervous, you know? So.
Okay. I have quite a few, so bear with me. Sorry. The first few are for tourism. This first one is for production and editing for Find Your Space ads. The Find Your Space ads was the marketing campaign through COVID. And that is a total of $12,075. The next one is it's kind of a dual thing going on here. There is $10,000 going to a conference lunch sponsorship, and this is actually for a conference in 2021 for small marketing. This cost will include a presentation that our tourism office will be able to give that presents the area and all our facilities, what we can do. And it also pays for ads in their publications. The second part of it is also $10,000, and this is bringing in the small market meeting planners from the Western U.S. to show off all of our Washington County has to offer. So one is them going somewhere, one of them is bringing people here. So that's a total of $20,000. The next one is a co-op project with the Utah Office of Tourism. This is for German cinema, and our contribution to this is going to be $5,000, so we'll be reimbursed for most of it. This is where we would put ads in German movie theaters. Like we go to the movies, we see the ads, same thing there.
Hopefully they're in German.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
with a Dixie accent.
Right. And the total of this is $42,500. This next one is for the Dixie Center. This is for pipe and drape parts. They needed to expand to make things taller and wider. This is for more separation for their events. This is coronavirus CARES Act funds, and this is for $11,728.20. The next one is for emergency services. This is grant funded. It's for gas masks and the filters that go along with them. for $55,466. The next one is, it's kind of a combined effort between Public Works and HCP, the Habitat Conservation Plan. And this is for Confluence Park. What it is, it's additional work that's already, it's in addition to the work that's already being done to level some fields and irrigation. This extra additional portion is requested by Laverican City. And that's $29,950. This next one is for our IT department. This is a host server, and it's a replacement with more capacity than we already have. And this one is to replace one that we need right away, and more will be coming later. This one is for $17,655.78. One extra side note on that, sorry, is our host servers are not having the capacity that we need. So that's why we're needing to replace them. The next couple are for our roads department. This first one is for a 2020 CAT grader for $259,900, but we are trading in an old grader and getting a $49,000 credit. So our cost is $210,900. The next one is for equipment fuel for $13,812.87. The next one is for some masonry that needs to be done at the sheriff's office. This is for the construction of a new block wall for our booking area. And this is $15,500. And unless there's any questions, that's all I have.
Ray, a question on the fuel. Is that's
Sure.
not paying a bill, that's purchasing under a fixed price going forward, correct?
No, this.
Fuel?
No, they bid this out every time they need to fill their tanks for their equipment, and so they contact any local distributor and see what the best price is that they can get.
But again, for a quantity yet to be used.
Oh, yes, to be used, yes, in the
Yeah.
future, yes. This is filling the tanks out of the road shed.
Yeah, it's pretty cheap. And just to add to anybody watching or reviewing these, that those items that were tourism-based, that as per our instructions, and tourism saw this as an obvious, they started to market in a different direction. Obviously, they're not trying to be in advertising in China, even though we used to have a lot of tourists come from there, but they focused more on domestic markets and trying to beef up, even though they didn't spend their budget by any means, because advertising in quantity in foreign areas is more expensive. But here locally, with the exception of the German theaters, I guess, our state Board of Tourism thinks that that's still going to be a market, and it usually is, of those who will come here eventually. So, again, we only share a small portion of that total bill, but I just wanted everyone to know, those marketing dollars were redirected to build up a local, sort of state, countrywide allocation. And if anybody's driven out there, they see that there's license plates from everywhere. So obviously it was effective and will be. So I'll make a motion that we approve the budget, the purchase request from Ray as a read for us.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the purchase request. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Well, thank you very much, Ray. Appreciate that. Item 5 is emergency service reports from Washington County Sheriff's Office. Let's see. Sergeant Cashin.
Afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to do this. I think I'm far enough away. So the good thing is we didn't have 26 calls like the last report I gave you. We've only had 8 in the last month, at 195 total man hours used. Of the victims that we rescued, 8 were in county, they were from our county, and the other 4 were from outside our county. So I'll just kind of roll through these. October 24th, we had an agency assist in the Virgin River Gorge. They called for our high angle team to help them with a vehicle that had gone off the cliffs and to help extract someone out of it. 26th, we had a mountain bike crash on the Gem Trail. Gem Trail is becoming very popular. That's not the only one. On the 26th, we also had a missing person. St. George PD called and asked us to come help find. The 30th, we had a downed mountain biker on the Gould Wash. Do you know where that is?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that gentleman did not survive. We think it was an illness-related thing. On the 2nd of this month, we had a missing person again in St. George that they called us and asked us to come find. On the 6th, we had 2 lost hikers on Red Mountain Trail, which happens quite often. On the 11th, you may have seen 2 Black Hawk helicopters flying around this town. That was us. Had 4 teenagers, males, that were hiking across Pine Valley Mountain, and they'd been up there for 2 days. 2 of which were showing signs of altitude sickness, 1 of which was not doing well. And the reason I'm going into this one is we asked for Life Flight to come and help us, which they did. But their closest landing zone was over 2 miles away, and their crew still hiked into those patients. Through a foot of snow, boulder fields, you name it, they hiked through it. Well, I sent a ground crew in from New Harmony. It was 6.5 miles to them. They did get to them. They assessed them, told us the one kid was not doing so well, and they spent the night with them while I was trying to get a hoist helicopter. Obviously, the state helicopter, we asked for it, and it was unavailable. Life Flight's helicopter up north as hoist was not available till morning, so we ended up calling the Air Force in Florida and getting 2 Blackhawks out of Nellis to come and get them off. So that was quite an ordeal. It was a very long rescue, but it ended well. And the last one, again, was on the Gem Trail, which is another injured mountain biker. That young man actually ended up having a severe back injury, so Hurricane EMS treated him, and between us and them, we hauled him out. So his outcome is good. That's what I have.
Amazing.
Well, thank you very much, Sergeant Cashin. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Sergeant.
It's always sobering, I think, to think about the service that they provide. So thank you. Item 6 is consideration of our canvass from our November 3rd, 2020 general election. I don't know if anybody was paying attention, but we did have a general election here on last month. I know Kim was paying attention.
So
Melanie was paying attention. Everybody in the clerk's office was paying attention.
We thought this day might never come, November 17th. We've been looking forward to this since October 13th when the ballots mailed. And we've been kind of fully engaged for the last while. I'm going to give you just some information before we kind of get to the results of the election. For 2020, we counted 91,594 ballots, which is a turnout of over 90%, over 91%, which is kind of unheard of for us. To give you an idea, in 2016, we counted 63,000 ballots, which was a 78% turnout. In 2018, we counted 62,000 ballots, which was again around a 78, 79% turnout, which those were very good numbers, but this is kind of unprecedented, this new election here. As you'll remember, we went to by mail in general election of 2018, and we're kind of fully engaged with that now. Between the June 30th primary this year and the general election, we had 10,000 additional registrations to vote, it went from 90,000 to 100,000 registered voters in Washington County, which is a big number. On election night, we had unofficial results of 81,554 votes counted. And everybody wants all the votes counted on election night, but it doesn't actually happen that way. we've counted 10,000 votes since election night. The majority of those votes came in the drop boxes after about 3 or 4 o'clock on election day. We went out a couple times on election day and gathered those and processed them, but starting about 4 o'clock, we didn't do that anymore because it's kind of a process to process those to be tabulated. What we do is go out at 8 o'clock and lock the drop boxes just like it's a polling location, so additional ballots can't be dropped. Then we pick them up on Wednesday morning and process them on Wednesday, and we processed nearly 7,000 ballots on 11/4 on Wednesday. So that was the majority of the ballots after Election Day that were counted. We did have over 2,000 ballots that were cast provisionally on Election Day at the Dixie Center, and a big majority of those counted. 1,812 out of 2,044 were legitimate counted ballots. So that's kind of a high number. We had 988 ballots, not counting the provisionals, that were not counted that we got, and some of those came in the mail late. Some of those came unsigned to us, and people didn't come in and remedy that. Others were kicked out by the signature verifier, and people did not come in and remedy those. And we had some that we required ID from that we didn't get. So there was 988 ballots that received, not counting the provisionals, that for one reason or another were not counted. And then 232 provisionals were not for various reasons. And I want to say right up front here, before the election, I'm glad I wasn't a U.S. postal worker because they took a lot of grief. But we will say that they were excellent here. They were responsive, they were efficient, they were early in the day, and it was consistent day in and day out. And actually, we took cinnamon rolls up to the Postal Service the next day. So that isn't always the case, but it was for this election. So I want to talk a little bit about the results. Most of these won't be much different than you already knew. Things have been we've been updating on a regular basis. When we've had ballots available to process, we've updated those so that we didn't have, some right towards the end. To give you an idea, and this kind of reflects a majority of Republican candidates in Washington County. In general, there's about 62 or 63% of our voters are registered Republicans. About 22% maybe are unaffiliated, and around 10 or 11% are registered Democrats, and the remainder, to get to 100%, are the other parties, the Green Party, Libertarian, United Utah Party make up to get to the difference. But typically, Republican candidates with an opponent typically get between 73 and 75, 78% of the ballots in Washington County. And this year has been no different. There's been some speculation that as our county grew, that demographic would change some, that would become maybe a little bit bluer than as red as we've been, but it doesn't seem to change a heck of a lot. So to give you an idea, President Trump received nearly 74% of the ballots in Washington County, and that's a good number. So Chris Stewart, 74%. Spencer Cox was 69%. I will say in the governor's race, typically write-in candidates don't receive a lot of support, but we had a candidate, and I may mess her name up, but Madeline Kazantzis received nearly 3,000 write-in votes, which is not nearly enough votes to win, but it's a pretty significant number when you think of what people need to do to vote that way. So that was a pretty good effort, in my opinion. But the winners were Attorney General in Washington County, Sean Reyes, the Auditor, John Dougal, the Treasurer, David Damshin, Don Ipson in State Senate 29, Travis Segmiller was unopposed, House District 71, Brad Last was unopposed, Lowry Snow received 73-point-something% of the vote. Another typical number, Walt Brooks, 76.44%. Kind of the one exception to this was Commissioner Cox. He got 84% of the vote, so congratulations on your reelection, Commissioner.
Yeah.
We had a lot of other county positions. Tom Durant, Gary Christensen, David Whitehead, Eric Clark were unopposed. In the school board races, Becky Dunn, Craig Segmiller, Terry Hutchison won, and the judicial people were all approved. The one thing that was a little bit different, Constitutional Amendment A failed in Washington County, 47.88 to 52.12. Statewide, it was 58% for, and that was the amendment to change his and her and the gender things in the Constitution. So that was one thing that was just a little bit different than statewide. So you have the results there, and I'd make that recommendation to you. But I want to say a couple things before I get done, and I've been practicing. But I've got people that work for me that are unbelievable. I'm not going to do all their names, but they work long hours. They take a lot of crap from a lot of people. We have great poll workers. Nicole and her staff helped us. Jonathan and his staff helped us. Other county people, we had people from the assessor, the library, the GIS. And I guess it's kind of stupid to cry my eyes out over that. But when I see the dedication and the things that people will do to make the election happen as it should, it's just kind of mind-boggling. I mean, we've been in this for over a month, and it's long days and long nights and 7 days a week and all that. So anyway, I am so grateful for all those that have come to help us. Thanks.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you to your team and Melanie and everybody. Elections and this vote by mail it seems to me has complicated your work even more, because every one of those ballots has to be opened, it has to be checked, it has to be put through the machine. I think people don't appreciate all the shipping and handling that is handled now with each ballot, as far as making sure. But as we think about where our country's at, preserving the integrity of the vote is absolutely essential, and it's demonstrated by our clerk auditor's office. They do a great job. So.
Well, and I should note, just for those who are listening, our clerk auditor, Kim, mentioned some things that maybe other counties around the country don't make such an effort. But I walked into Melanie the day after, and I saw stacks of ballots there that they were going to extraordinary effort to track down the people who didn't sign a ballot or who defaced it in some way, but they still had the ability to contact, and trying to get them to come in to either verify a signature or verify an address or claim a ballot that they could otherwise has been damaged or something. And I believe Melanie and everyone else who was doing that were trying their best to get people's vote to be counted.
Absolutely.
And even if they innocently forgot to sign something, or they, or they damaged their own ballot, or they didn't fill something in, or the wrong pen, or what, I mean, any kind of reason that it wasn't going to be counted up until the point that they were contacted. So to echo what Kim was saying, everyone who stepped across the hall there to help or internally, that was their goal, make sure every vote was counted. And for those that weren't counted, it's because people didn't want to come in and remedy the situation. So every effort was made.
Thank you again.
Thank you. I just have 100% confidence in what we're doing in Washington County and likewise in the state of Utah. And it's through the hard work and dedication of many, many people that make that possible. So thank you.
Very good. I'm open for a motion to accept the canvass from the November 3rd, 2020 general election.
I'll make that motion.
Mr.
You were a
Chairman,
candidate.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. And your good work is done. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Item 7 is consideration of ordinance number 2020-1165-0, an ordinance granting a variance from a subdivision and street improvement standards of Title 11 subdivision, hereafter fully described in this ordinance. Scott Messel.
Yes, so code allows for a variation or exception from the standards, and I'll go ahead and read it, where unusual topographic or other exceptional conditions exist, the county commission may vary the requirements of this title after receiving the recommendations of the planning commission, provided that such variations will not substantially impair the intent of this title, and that title being referred to as the subdivision, Title 11. We have this item and the next item on the agenda are both
very similar.
Very similar. So the Hunts own a parcel located in Veo. It is just over 10 acres in size. They wanted to subdivide the parcel into 2 lots for one of their kids to build on the other lot. They went through the subdivision process, and so you have, and it's before you, and the Planning Commission reviewed it in their last meeting, or 2 meetings ago, I apologize. So Lot 2 will be accessed via a flag lot, and then Lot 1 fronts onto 300 West there. The property, so 300 West is a private road, and it is not improved up to county standards this time, and then 100 South that runs along the north side of their property functions more like a driveway than an actual road. And so, and also they, although it is adjacent to their parcel, they are receiving access via the flag lot, so a driveway off of 300. They have requested to waive the street improvement standards and allow it to remain as is. The Planning Commission reviewed the request for exception, and the Planning Commission approved the preliminary and final plat for the subdivision, subject to the County Commission's decision, and they recommended the County Commission approve the request for exception.
Very good.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I attended this Planning Commission meeting and am familiar with the project. I would move to approve ordinance number 2020-1165-0, an ordinance granting a variation from the subdivision and street improvement standards of Title 11 subdivision, hereinafter fully described in this ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. And like you alluded to, Scott, because we're going to go on to item 8, which is consideration of ordinance number 2020-2011, 1166-0, an ordinance granting a variation from a subdivision and street improvement standards of Title 11 subdivision, hereafter fully described in this ordinance. And really, the way I see it is, for whatever reason, the state of Utah has decided that whenever you divide any piece of property, it then is described as a subdivision. And that's just, to me, you know, really what we're talking about is the lot split, what we used to call a lot split a few years ago. Mm-hmm. So really the use of the property is not really changed. The neighborhood hasn't really changed. You know, I usually think of a subdivision as 3 or 4 lots at least, you know, so anyway.
Yeah, in this instance, the Pearsons own property. They constructed an accessory dwelling on their property, so you have a primary dwelling and an accessory dwelling. They wanted to sell the accessory dwelling to one of their kids so that they could have it for their primary dwelling. To be able to do that, they needed to go through the subdivision process. The home's located, or the property's located along Vail Resort Road. There used to be a term called family compounds that was used a lot, and many of the dwellings that were approved in that area were approved under that family compound. The Pearsons are requesting a variation and exception to the road standards as well. And one of the reasons we feel that this one is an exception is that it's there's already the 2 dwellings there. There's not going to be any increase in traffic. You know, if they were dividing it into 4 lots, then we may have a different response to the request, but that there's no new traffic will be generated because of this lot split or subdivision.
Very good.
Well, and I've asked Scott to notify these good people in their request for lot splits that they still must maintain the ability for emergency vehicles to get to where they need to in case of required services. So even though we're not having them build it to a tremendous county road standard, they still can't let it go into such rabble that they can't receive services that they may need. And I'm not making that part of any motion, I'm just saying remind them
Yes.
that that's a requirement. So I'll move that we approve ordinance 2020-1166-0, an ordinance granting a variation from the subdivision of street improvement standards of Title 11 subdivision hereinafter fully described in this ordinance.
I'll second the motion.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you very much, Scott. Item 9 is consideration of resolution R-2020-2675, a resolution approving a cooperative agreement between Washington County and the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources for studies, surveys, and activities to be conducted in the furtherance of the Habitat Conservation Plan. Cameron?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
The project that you have before us is in coordination with 2 commitments that the county has agreed to in the renewal of the HCP. The first is to revise our translocation plan within 2 years, and the second is to revise our areas where we do surveys and clearances of desert tortoises within 5 years. And so this is the early process of trying to get to the end of those commitments, and we've agreed with the Division of Wildlife that they would be a good partner to help us accomplish those goals. We've already had $50,000 identified in the HCP budget for tortoise monitoring, and so we thought that this was a good fit for those particular projects. One of those projects is about $15,000 towards surveys on the Shivwits lands. We've worked collaboratively with them, with Dixie State, with SUU, who are all partners in that project. And the reason we'd like to better understand where tortoises occur on the Shivwits land is not just for their benefit, but it's also in consideration of, could we put tortoises out there as a part of our translocation plan? Is the habitat suitable? Are there other tortoises that they could reproduce with? So that's a really interesting and fun project that's already underway. Most of the really systematic surveys are going to take place next spring. So we're seeking help from Division of Wildlife for those surveys. And then the other $35,000 in that project is for the surveys countywide, looking for other locations where tortoises might occur and where we're going to need to remove them prior to development.
Very good. Well, this has been something that we've done for quite a few years. I think some of the commissioners know that I've been a little bit dissatisfied with State Department of Wildlife, and so I'll be voting no against this, but I'll open it up to my fellow commissioners.
Well, I just want to publicly recognize Cameron for his dedicated service on behalf of the HCP, and it's gone, I think, mostly unnoticed in the media, but the final environmental impact statement for our HCP renewal and Northern Corridor has been released for its final public comment, and it's before the governor now for a consistency review. Cameron has just done a tremendous job in spearheading that effort. I want to recognize and appreciate that. And I also value the relationship that we have with DWR in doing these surveys. They all have their ups and downs, but all in all, they've been an excellent partner for us in working with the HCP. And so I would move to approve resolution number R-2020-2675, a resolution approving a cooperative agreement between Washington County and the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources for studies, surveys, and activities to be conducted in the furtherance of the Washington County Habitat Conservation Plan.
We have a motion
And I'll second that with this comment, and that is from 20-plus years ago, my question has always been, well, how many are there? And at first, they were reluctant to say. And in fact, one person said to me, enough. I didn't appreciate that answer. But going forward, I think if we're going to make any cause for the success of the HCP, it is for us to say that despite maybe setbacks like fire, we still have numbers that would indicate to those who look at the species as being protected or cared for, that we're saying, hey, here's the count. This is what's happening. And without the ability to say, give that number in a credible fashion, we look hollow as the earliest answer that I was given once. So with that, I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No, that would be me. Very good. But I do want to echo Commissioner Cox's comments on Cameron's work at the county and just tremendous effort. Thank you. Thank you. Item 10 is consideration of resolution R-2020-2677, a resolution approving a grant donation agreement between Washington County and Switch Point. And Nicole, am I supposed to turn it over to Brian? Speak to this, and then Commissioner.
Can I just confirm, so the last one, motion passes?
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. As long as we have my dissenting vote on the record, I'm fine.
Okay, Commissioner, so this item is a request for CARES Act grant funding to Switch Point. Switch Point is a nonprofit organization. As you know, CARES Act can only be used, there's criteria, but has to be because of COVID or due to COVID, not budgeted in our current budget, and to be in use or used from March 1st to December 30th of this year. There's guidelines that say we can have expenditures related to the provision of grants to small businesses to reimburse the cost of business interruption caused by required closures. And then some further guidance that indicates that required closures doesn't mean by like a stay-at-home order. It could be voluntary due to COVID to try and minimize the spread of COVID and some of that nature. So Switch Point made their application for funding that fit within the time period for some of their expenditures, the expenses that they've incurred as they were responding to COVID, particularly as they were fixing up the old St. George Inn to allow for a location for individuals to be quarantined that didn't have another location to go to. And so their expenses are largely dealing with that, fixing that up and running the hotel. For a 4-month period of time. That entire 4 months that fits within the March to December time period, but they were only asking for a 4-month period of time. And so, their verified, demonstrated verified impact and request, $293,700 that could be considered as the review panel had evaluated this.
Very good.
Well,
Commissioner Holmquist.
Chair, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Brian, for your help in that clarification. And I want the public to know that we've looked at CARES Act funding as basically a loan that the federal government took out against the taxpayers. And therefore, it's not been trivial that we've considered these funds. We know that they will eventually come out of somebody's pocket, and that for the goodwill of the country and getting through economic times that required these sort of allocations just for the very purposes you spoke about. We will never know their impact truly on COVID, but I can tell you as an example, our own sheriff's office, when they were hit by COVID, they isolated, and within a short period of time, in fact, I hope it's written up in some law journal somewhere, or you know, in your field of work, because truly was a miracle how quickly you eradicated COVID from your jail. And similarly, Switch Point initially thought, how are we going to do this? They have a very transitory population coming through all the time. They're not medical experts to see who's coming and whatnot, but if they had anybody come with any kind of symptoms or even a positive test that had nowhere else to go, and if you can only imagine being tested positive if you're homeless or have no other access to services, you may go to SwitchPoint. And I do want to stress early on that out of our own funds, very early on, we allocated $50,000 to go to SwitchPoint, not CARES Fund related at all. But this request comes before us because they did open another facility that St. George City owns and that was suitable for patients. And this is, like was said, the allocation that they've put out and are now asking for some level of reimbursement. And I've said too much, and I have an amount in mind that I would be willing to put into a motion, but any other comments, I'll wait to make that motion.
No, I think you explained the situation well. Commissioner Cox?
I will make a comment that this is also very important to the city of St. George. They've also made a contribution to it. I think the role and mission of SwitchPoint in Washington County is crucial and vital, and the ability to have a safe place to isolate these individuals who tested positive so that they don't further infect other people, and that quarantine is beneficial to the entire county. And so I will wait for Commissioner Almquist's motion, but I'm inclined to support it.
You know, and these funds are not endless, and we do have to make certain allocations of the funds before deadlines, or they revert back to the state, in this case, what we've been allocated. But I make a motion on resolution number R 2020-2677, approving a grant donation between Washington County and SwitchPoint to the amount of $100,000.
And I will second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you very much. Item 11 is consideration of resolution R-2020-2678, a resolution authorizing quick claim deed from Washington County Council of Governments, COG, to Washington County. And just very quickly, this is almost like a house cleaning type of item. It's just that the COG, the Council of Government, is where we purchase right-of-way properties that could be used in the future. There is a property on Bluff that was purchased using COG funds, and it was recorded in the name of the COG. Now the COG is an advisory type of capacity, not necessarily a legal entity. And so the motion that I would make on this resolution is basically just transferring, this motion would be transferring it to the name of Washington County.
It would be cleaning up the title.
And that is my motion.
And I will second.
Very good. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Item 12 is a consideration of resolution R-2020-2679, a resolution approving an MOU between U.S. BLM, let's see, is it the Fish and Wildlife Service or the BLM? U.S. BLM, St. George Field Office, Washington County, and Washington County Water Conservancy District regarding a proposed exchange if real property in the Red Cliffs Desert Reserve for other real property in the state of Utah.
And I will speak to this.
Please.
This is another exciting one. When the Habitat Conservation Plan, the old one was originally signed in February of 1996. There were a sufficient amount of private in-holdings. We have been, I'd use the word nibbling away, but it seems like in the last couple of years we've been taking fairly good-sized bites at getting these properties traded out and landowners with in-holdings able to use their land elsewhere in the county or getting it purchased. And so this agreement is part of Washington County's role as a facilitator. And it's a kind of a complex three-way between the BLM, the county, Washington County Water Conservancy District, and His Family Matters, is the private holder. But these funds, COG by this resolution, it would appropriate up to $150,000 for facilitation, and that could be used for NEPA, environmental studies, appraisal costs, and there could be some artifact things we might have to study and mitigate. And so this would just help pave the way for an eventual transfer of that land out of the HCP.
Oh, very good. Well, thank you very much, Commissioner Cox, for your hard work. And when I first became a county commissioner, you remember we spent a lot of time talking about in holdings. It was a lot of stress. And now we've just been, with your leadership, we've been moving the ball, and this is great. So with that, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Thank you very much. Item 13 is consideration of resolution R-2020-2680, a resolution approving tourism advisory tax board or advisory board recommendations. So,
And
Commissioner Cox?
I'll speak to that. I attended our last Tourism Tax Advisory Board meeting. This is a group of industry professionals, others who make recommendations to the county commission on how we can make the best investments possible with our transient room tax. And the board recommended that we approve $30,000 to the St. George Chamber of Commerce for the publishing of the area guide. It's a guide they put out every year that's extremely helpful for visitors to our area. And so I would make a motion in support of the resolution, R-2020-2680, approving that recommendation.
Thank you very much. I have a motion. Do I have a second or discussion? I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you very much. Item 14 is consideration of resolution R-2020-2682, a resolution approving a grant donation agreement between Washington County and St. George Chamber of Commerce. And let's see, do I refer back to Brian?
Okay. So this is going to be very similar to the one before. The St. George Chamber of Commerce is a nonprofit organization. They do a lot of work to promote businesses in the area and economic development. They have filled out an application to help with some of their expenses. You know, the same requirements that we talked about before, that we can give grants to small businesses to help them with their expenses. It's not to be revenue replacement, but help them with their expenses as they experience business interruption due to COVID. They outlined expenses of $112,582.85, but their request is for $72,405.67. That's all that they felt like they needed to request. As the review committee looked at this, they felt like that was a demonstrated verified impact that could be considered by the commission.
Now, as I'm looking at both item 14 and 15, they're almost twins, and it all has to do with the resiliency fund and CARES funding. Would it be appropriate if we could just consolidate those two into one motion, or?
Sure, that would be fine. So 15. What happened with that one is early on in response to the COVID pandemic, the county gave $500,000 to the Chamber of Commerce to be distributed to other small businesses in the area, but that the Chamber of Commerce would facilitate that loan program. This was prior to the county receiving CARES money, and this was going to come from other funds from the county to be spent to further and help the economic impact in the county in responding to COVID. As part of their facilitating that program, the Chamber of Commerce was going to be able to keep any of the funds that they were paid back pursuant to that loan to then further facilitate more economic impact in businesses. But as the county got CARES money, we felt like that program fit within the CARES guidelines for economic impact and grants to small businesses that were impacted by COVID. And so we have amended the agreement that we had with the chamber that they would not try to collect the money, because part of the CARES requirements is that if it's a loan, then if it's repaid, it goes back to the federal government, or we can make it a grant to the small businesses. So we've communicated with the chamber that we wanted to make those loans a grant so that they were not required to be repaid.
Very good.
That's what 15's about.
Well, thank you. Gentlemen?
Basically, Brian has said everything that I was going to say. So, having said that, it is contingent upon the fact that they will show that those prior loans, perhaps, that they titled them are now there's no expectation of being paid back, that they are grants. And I believe that those companies that primarily were asked to retain their employees.
Right.
And to keep the door open with those employees, that's why they were, processed and even awarded, now are off the hook, so to speak, because other funds have come back in from CARES. So, I'll make a motion if that's sufficient.
Please, or let's Commissioner Cox ask something. Good?
Yeah, I'll
Need to
second.
add?
And you've got both of them?
Well, my motion for both 14 and 15, I'll read it in, is to approve both resolutions R 2020-2682, approving a grant donation agreement between Washington County and the St. George Area Chamber of Commerce, and of course, sister motion with that, or together with that, is R 2020-2681, approving the amendment to the Small Business Resiliency Fund agreement, and with the language of it being prior monies allocated be termed grant monies and not loan monies, to the tune of $72,000.
And I will second the motion.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you very much. Item 16 is consideration of Resolution R-2020-2683, a resolution ratifying the agreement for professional services from Bowen Collins and Associates. Commissioner Cox?
I'd be happy to speak to this. I've got kind of a long history with the library, and
a painful one.
It seems like every time we have any kind of a monsoon event, we have something happen at the library. This year, our monsoon lasted a total of about 3 hours, and it dropped in excess of 3 inches of rain. It did something that I never, ever expected to see. And I say that because we've been working on the library over a period of years to make it more resilient against natural disaster. But there was so much water inundating the area that the water pressure exerted under the concrete floor of the basement of the library was sufficient to buckle the concrete up. And so the basement is now not in use. We've closed that off. But because of the emergent nature of making sure that the rest of the library was safe, we contracted with Bowen Collins and Associates, and they've been working on this, and it's an hourly rate, but they've been working on it for some time. I would make a motion to approve Resolution R 2020-2683, a resolution ratifying the agreement for professional services from Bowen Collins and Associates, Inc.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Item 17 is consideration of Resolution R-2020-2684, a resolution providing coronavirus relief funds to purchase a contraband detection system for the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Under Sheriff James Stanley.
Thank you. Just a brief description. It's a mobile magnetometer that can be placed in an area. In this case, it would be our transport corridor where we move inmates every day to and from court. And this would identify any contraband as small as a paperclip going in and out of the facility. So we'd know who we have to search rather than searching everyone that we do now. So it's a way to kind of clean up the searches that we do and have less person-to-person contact with inmates as they go in and out of the main yard, in and out of the transport corridor, and other areas where we have security concerns.
Oh, that's great.
And this was for more than one.
Correct. Two, but they kind of work in tandem. So if you walk near one 4 feet away, it will detect something. If you put two together, it kind of magnifies their ability to find something. So we're going to put two in the on the hallway and have the inmates walk.
Good. Well, thank you. Thank you for all the hard work you're doing out there, James.
Well, I can speak to the fact that we've talked about this as a way of less contact and certainly qualifies. So without any ado, I'll motion to approve Resolution R 2020-2684, providing criminal release funds to purchase contraband detection systems for the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Two of them.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. Item 18 is consideration of Resolution R-2020-2685, a resolution appointing a member to the Southern Utah Shooting Sports Park Advisory Board. And I'll just speak to this. Advisory Board is made up of our clubs and venues at the Shooting Sports Park that kind of oversee and give advice back on the Shooting Sports Park. And so the name that I'd like to present before you in this resolution is Chad Larson, who will be representing Dixie Desperados on the Shooting Sports Park Board, and that's my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Item 18 is consideration of Resolution R-2020-2686, a resolution approving notice of termination of property management agreement for the commercial property. And this is kind of to the property that we spoke to earlier. And let's see, Brian, do you want to speak to this briefly? Or
Yeah, so the property that we cleaned up the title on earlier, that property is located on Bluff Street. It actually has a building on it, and the county, or the COG, the Council of Governments, had previously entered into an agreement with NAI to do property management for the COG and to find tenants in there. The COG has since moved in a little different direction as far as who the tenant is and how that property is being managed. And so pursuant to the agreement with NAI, we're looking to just send them a notice of termination that we don't need their property management services, that the county will handle that in other ways.
Yeah, like you mentioned, we have a new tenant at the request and in agreement with St. George City. The Bicycle Collective is now using the property in agreement. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt Resolution R-2020-2686, terminating this commercial property agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Item 20 is consideration of current and future public works projects. Ron Whitehead. Now, I told Ron that I could have moved him up in the agenda, but he said, no, I'm okay. You know, so appreciate your patience.
You were moving me up.
Oh, is that what? Miscommunication. I apologize. I also told you that I was going to be able to hold this meeting under an hour, but
you did tell me that. I actually remembered that part of it. So
you have to remember, I'm a politician, you know.
It was a tough meeting. I understand that.
Just kidding.
So the purpose of me being here today is to go over some of the proposed projects we have coming up. So you have a list of what we could be working on next year, and if there's any questions on what we plan to do with our money, we've got way more projects than we will ever get to, and probably way more than our money would allow us to do in 1 year. So we've given you a brief outline of some of the projects we could be working on, and we will analyze these after the first of the year as we come out of winter to see if some of them have changed in necessity of being repaired or what we need to do, and then we'll come back with a finalized list of where we're going to work. This will cover our money from the budget for the road department and the transportation, specially funded transportation special service district also puts money in towards some of these projects too. So we will cover those in their budget meeting too, whenever they decide to have that. The main ones we talk about are roads we're planning to chip and seal next year. We have 3 on our list for next year. The Kolob Terrace Road, Upper 5 miles from the park to the reservoir, that's got some damage, occasionally has spring surface under the road and soft spots, so we need to go in and do some repair work to that, and then do some work over the top of that too. And then Sky Ranch Cliff Dwellers area, there's some large crack seals down there in one phase of that, and we will go in and repair that stuff and chip seal over that. And then the Gould's Wash Road, we are putting some hard surface material out on there right now, and next year that will be on our chip seal list to go over and coat that with a chip seal to help seal it off on there too. It'll make it a much better road. At least start traveling down the Gould's Wash area. It'll get you out there a couple of miles off the highway, and then we'll chip that. Hopefully it'll keep some of the dust out of that valley up there. That's the chip seal roads. We have a lot of other roads that are really getting hit by our growth and our tourism, and we've just got those on a 2021 road maintenance priority list. Want to hear them quick?
Yeah.
Okay. Dalton Wash Road, I'll just give you the names of them. I've got a written little short description. I'll give a copy of this to Cheyenne in the morning, so she has it for the record. Dalton Wash Road, Pinto Road, Kolob Pavement, that's the one we mentioned before. Kolob to Cedar City Road, we'll put some shale cap on the reservoir up to the Iron County line. Oak Valley Road, Sand Cove Road, Plains Road, Sheep Bridge Road, Sky Ranch to the Sand Dunes Road, Danish Ranch Road, Cottonwood Road. We're working in conjunction with the Forest Service on that. By the way, we're getting ready to start that project next week, at least a part of that project on the road mill of the existing roadway up there and stuff. General Steam Road, Manganese Road, Pinto Canyon Road, Warner Valley Road, Baker Dam Road, Old Church Farm, Newcastle Road, Gooseberry Road, New Harmony Hall, material to cover some of those streets, Black Ridge Ranches, Little Creek Mountain, Pataqua Road, Vail Roads, Lytle Ranch Road, Ox Valley and Calf Springs Road, Curly Hollow Road, Bloomington Caves Road, Bulldog Pass Road. It's a lot of roads, but it's not near what we have to maintain and take care of. These are the ones that either have a purpose for our residents, doing something down those roads or using those roads a lot, and or high tourism that we're getting hit with a lot of down that. And so all those are on the list. We'll look and see and coordinate with you guys which ones we want to start working on as soon as we can, and hopefully fix as many of them up as we possibly can.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Ron. And as a part of our practice and also at the advice of our attorney, we're advised to vote on what was just presented to us so that they can be put up on our website.
Oh, are you looking for a motion to
Yeah, that
approve
would,
list?
yes, please.
I'm not going to try to recount it from memory.
No, just.
But Ron is going to turn the list in tomorrow, and I'd make a motion to approve the consideration of current and future public works projects as outlined by our Public Works Director, Ron Whitehead.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Item 21, and our last item on our agenda is Commissioner's Report.
I see that Chief Kuhlman is here, so I'd like him to come up. And recognize, too, that Heath Hansen is here from Senator Lee's office, who's been working hard to consider the deadlines and things for various equipment and devices and things that we have purchased or put through. And just kind of give us an update where you are with that, and then so that he can also report back to the senator on.
Adam Snow is also here representing Congressman Chris Stewart. He's just hiding back there.
Is he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my word. You were right behind Kim.
And be careful, if we start calling just everybody up that attends our meetings,
That's right.
That's true. It could go
Nobody
longer.
Way to go, Adam.
Chief?
Yes.
While you're speaking, could you maybe explain to our residents the process they might go through if they've got some small pile of something that needs to be burned now that the prohibition against all fires has been lifted?
something about an amendment saying firearms and fire go together. I don't know how that works, but currently within the incorporated area of Washington County, there is a process where they can go online and get a burn permit. They don't need to call anybody. They can log on to, for example, in the east side of the county, they can go to hvfssd.org, and there's a link to the burn site window. On days that the clearing index is appropriate for burning, they're able to go on, enter their information, and issue a burn permit right then and there. And most cities have a link on their sites to get to that burn window. In the unincorporated area of the county, they need to call the county fire warden, Adam Hyder, and he will give them permission to burn in the unincorporated areas. But it is open for burning. We ask that you be very cautious. We have put out several fires that have spread off of people's property, and this is the last few days, into unincorporated areas and into federally owned properties. And so even though it's a little bit cooler, our fuel moistures are still extremely low and those fires will still spread. We just ask that they be careful, and if they'd be kind enough to wait till the clearing index is open. As you drove across the county yesterday, if you noticed, it was pretty hazy, just from the limited burning we had going on. So it is open and they can go on and get those burn permits as clearing index would allow. But please keep them small. Keep your hot dogs and marshmallows handy, or whatever you need to do. As far as the expenditures go for these funds, this county commission has approved multiple pieces of equipment to be purchased to help combat COVID-19 impact of the pandemic. If you've looked at the recent headlines in the media for Utah, the ICUs in Utah have exceeded their functional capacity. It's interesting that 3 weeks ago, 2,000 was a high number, a week ago, 3,000, and just days ago, 5,000, with 1,300 of those being delayed reports. But see 1,000 more cases going in within a week's time is just phenomenal. We're concerned about the ability to continue to care for individuals. There have been some that I've discussed with that have been in the hospital, and because of the overcrowding have not quite been able to get where they needed to be, and requires a little bit of extra effort. So the county commission has taken some effort to provide overflow equipment facilities. The county's emergency operations has taken a big chunk of that on to make those purchases. We've been given responsibility for several of the larger pieces of equipment. We have multiple specialty items that are sitting somewhere now between Tennessee and Hurricane Utah that are being shipped. That'll be distributed throughout the county. Allows us to monitor patients' conditions and respirations and their ability to properly function on the cellular level. We have also coming in decontamination equipment that could also be here this week, that allows us to go into a facility. The stuff we're waiting for now, we can go into a facility and in one machine we'll do 14,000 cubic feet. When we get done, all the viruses and bacteria will be dead and you'll have water and air in the facility. Pretty good piece of equipment. Working with a vendor as we speak, that hopefully that's why my watch is vibrating, that we've asked them to look at their numbers. We're trying to spend these dollars very frugally, making sure that we're getting the best bang for the county taxpayers. Been very responsive on decreasing some of the costs as proposals come in, allow us to help again with life-sustaining measures, as well as some transportation pieces of equipment that will be hopefully getting a good word on in the next couple of days as well. As far as so, everything's for the most part has been ordered. Would hopefully be here within the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Great, and I believe
Fantastic.
Clerk Auditor also said the other items cut a check for today. So, thank you.
Cool.
Thank you,
Thanks
Chief.
for allowing us to participate.
Great.
Thank you very much, Chief. Appreciate you. Commissioner Cox?
The only other comment I've got is this is going to be an interesting UAC week. That stands for the Utah Association of Counties, and I'd like to recognize your leadership role in that body. But we normally have that every year, Dixie Center in the fall, and because of COVID, we're going to do it virtually. And so I'm looking forward to rubbing shoulders virtually.
Yes. Well, very good. Speaking of virtually, and people can, this meeting will be rebroadcast daily on TDS cable, channel 22 and 108 high definition at 10 a.m., 2 p.m., and 5:30 p.m. And it's also available on YouTube Community Education channel. So appreciate everybody being here. And with that, we will stand adjourned.